Welcome to the Exploring Spirit podcast. Join John and Sue Cook for a gentle, conversational guide to your spiritual development. Together with their guests, John and Sue will share their experience and wisdom to bring you insight and empowerment on your spiritual journey. This is episode 5, Listeners' Questions.
Okay, well, we're back again, and what we thought we'd do for this podcast, because we've had a few questions asked. They're quite thought-provoking, actually, and interesting questions that a lot of you may also ask and be thinking, and we'll try and answer them. The only thing I will emphasise is that we'll answer them to the best of our ability from our own experiences. It doesn't mean that it's the only answer. So if you don't agree with our answers, feel free, because we've all got our own mindset, we've all got our own answers to everything, so we'll just answer them to the best of our ability.
Yeah, that's great. And these are questions that we are asked time and time again. So the first one is, I feel drawn to spiritual development but have no experience. Should I start with oracle cards or meditation, or is there a better idea for a complete beginner?
Well, I think that's a good starting point, meditation particularly, because we always start every session that we do with a meditation. Meditation gets you into the right frame of mind, because you get the sleepy, relaxed feeling that you need in order to work, in order to bring spirit through. Oracle card, that's fine, that's another good way of working. And when you first start, I do believe that it's best to start with some form of tool. There are other tools that you can use. There are pendulums, there's other types of tarot cards, there's angel cards. There's we work with crystals sometimes. We've worked with flowers, we've worked with ribbons. Ribbons are a traditional church starting point, and if you don't know what ribbons are, they are literally ribbons. You just get a bunch of different coloured ribbons, and you whoever you're reading, you ask them to pick 1 or 2 or even 3.
Which goes back to what we've talked about before, working with colour.
Yeah, it works along those lines.
And these are all tools that you can use on your own, but the best way of starting is within a group. Yeah. Because then you get feedback. Then you're linking with people with similar belief systems to you, and you've got someone to bounce off.
Yeah, the only thing you can do on your own really out of all those things is meditation, because communication you need other people to communicate, really. So it is something you need to do in a group.
So I think really the best thing to do is to join a group, a circle of any kind, or a meditation group. There are so many things out there. Or healing, absolutely. Being with like-minded people is the way that we would recommend you to go. Yeah. And then this follows on. Is there a specific technique I can use to connect with spirit, as it's currently very hit and miss when I try?
Yeah, that's definitely something you have to practice, and you have to form a bond with spirit. They have to get to a point where they trust you as much as you trust them. And what I mean by that is that it comes through trial and error, because you have to make mistakes in order to learn. And so one of the techniques you can use, which I often do now, or I used to do especially, is that whatever comes into your mind. So if you're with somebody, first thing you do is ask, is it a male or female spirit that's with them? And once you get the answer, whatever comes through first is the way to go. And then you start asking questions, because a lot of people don't realise you can ask spirit questions. They sit there waiting for something to happen, and you have to start it to happen. You have to ask for it to happen. So you have to start the process, and then you have to continue the process. When I'm doing a reading, as you know, sir, I'm asking questions in my mind all the while. Questions I think that the sitter would want to have asked for them. A bit like this, actually.
But when you're starting off, again, this is where being in a group helps. Because when you're working on your own or with a friend, it's very difficult because you really need to be working with people that you don't know. So again, I think my recommendation would be a group.
Yeah. But definitely ask questions of spirit as well.
Next question. I've been told that there's evil spirits as well as good ones. How do I protect myself?
I think that just comes down to trust. Because we always say a prayer before we start, and we do that to initiate the intent we want, which of course is the positive energy. We want the positive energy. Of course, we know in life that there's people who we would consider to be more on the dark side. I don't know if you could use the word evil for most people, but I suppose there's a few that you could. It's, it's your own perspective of that, yeah. But I've never really encountered what I would class as an evil spirit all the years I've done it, because I've worked on the light and on the positive energy. It comes from within. It's the energy you give off, is the energy you're going to channel. So,
and starting with, we do a prayer, not a religious prayer, but just to show respect to spirit and respect for yourself. So that's what we think of as protection, isn't it? A short prayer can be anything where we ask the world of spirit, all of our loved ones and ancestors, to draw close and offer their love and protection whilst we do the work in their name with love. And then a closing prayer is just the same, but thanking them for coming. It can be very short, very simple, very to the point.
Yeah, you can just ask for protection. You can just use words like, Spirit world, we ask you to draw close. We ask you to bring the love from our loved ones. We ask you to protect us as we do this work. And we ask for speak our truth and to be authentic in the way that we work. Amen. It can be as simple as that.
And moving on. I'm very much into spiritual work, but my partner isn't interested. How do I encourage him to give it a try?
It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Because you can't force anybody to take on an understanding until they're ready. But what you can do, if they're okay about it, is that you can talk to them about it. And to be honest, so long as they're okay with you practicing and you doing it, it may not be their thing. You don't have to worry too much about that. The only problem you got is if they're totally against it, and then you would have to decide whether you would want to carry on doing it for yourself if it's going to damage your relationship, or are you in the right relationship, I suppose, really.
And very often people who say they're not interested are frightened by it. You know, they don't understand it. But generally, they will ask you questions about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you always say when you've done a show, people go home and partners want to know, did you get a message? What did they say?
Yeah, it's mostly women. There used to be. There are more men coming now. And I guarantee every woman that goes home, their husband didn't want to know. The first question he asks is, did he give anything? Did he say anything about me? So most people are interested. And it's just a matter of kind of working together with that.
Okay, and then I'm from a very religious family. Is this compatible with talking to spirit? Well, I think we've had people from all religions, all walks of life, and spiritual work isn't religious. It doesn't come down to any given religion. We've had Catholics, Sikhs, many other religions, Muslims come into circle. Spirit is about communicating with our own spirit, with each other's spirit, and then spirit from another realm.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from belief.
No, it doesn't. It can add to it in a very positive way.
Yeah, I mean, you see things on the TV that are... and of course TV, the medium of TV or films, is to shock and to keep you interested in that way. So they're not going to show... They want to show a little bit of that kind of scary, but I've never really encountered it working with spirit personally. Moving
on, how long does it take to become a medium and how do I practice? And again, we seem to be going in a circle, don't we? In a circle, back to the circle. Well, how long have you been a working medium?
Well, I've been doing it, perhaps when I was a child I first started, but I've been doing it as classing myself as a medium for close on 30 years, possibly a bit more, I forget. But the thing is,
Are you still learning?
Yeah, how long does it take to become a medium? A lifetime. Or 5 minutes, because you can class yourself as a medium as soon as you connect to spirit, either through healing or from connecting with spirit, because you become the middleman, which is what medium really means. But it depends what you're asking, if the other answer is forever.
Yeah, I think it is. You never stop learning.
Yeah.
So how do I practice? It's, again, circling back to a circle. Practicing within a circle is a safe space to do it. My daughter is 15 years old. Is that too young to come to a spiritual development workshop?
I think 16 is the age that most people would accept is the normal age. But having said that, it depends on the maturity of the person. It depends on whether it's something they're really interested in a way. But you have to be very careful not to, because at that age, very easy to...
very susceptible.
Yeah.
So I think we'd always say 16, wouldn't we?
At least 16.
At least, because some 16-year-olds can be very immature, and we don't ever want to lead somebody into something that we don't feel that they are mature enough to cope with. And
it's not a situation where you're dictating anything. People can move in and out of circles and belief systems as regards spirituality. It's not something that you dictate or anything. But yeah.
This is a very common one. What's the difference between spirit and psychic?
Psychic is when you are working from your own intuition. It's when people say if you use tarot cards or any tools, that's psychic. Spiritual is when you're connecting to somebody's loved one in spirit world. Personally, they overcross and they do a crisscross, because at the end of the day, psychic is basically using your spirit, so it's still spiritual. Spiritual is using a spirit that isn't in your body, that's connected to somebody else. But you have to use both. You can't work spiritually without working psychically, I don't believe, because how can it come from your own energy if you don't start with that?
Yeah.
So, it has to be both. But it's a very confusing concept and people get muddled. And there was somebody in the circle the other day gave a lovely message. They didn't mention what spirit person came through. I asked them, because they hadn't got a clue what they were talking about, but the person I was giving the reading to understood everything. And I asked them where that came from, and they didn't know, because it hadn't come from them. But they hadn't actually mentioned a spirit person, but it had obviously come from spirit, because they didn't know where those words were coming from. So at the end of the day, that would have been classed as psychic within some realms, but it was obviously very much spiritual.
Yeah. And just because you don't get everything about the spirit person, it's about the message. Sometimes the message is more important than describing who the person is, because the sitter at that time understood completely and enjoyed what was a spiritual reading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Will my friends and colleagues think I'm crazy if they find out I'm learning tarot?
Some might, but others will be asking you to give them a reading.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, we've had this happen so often with different people, and they've said, I've been to work and I've told them about the fact that I can read cards, and I've got a list of people waiting to have cards read now at work. I'm spending more time reading cards than I'm doing my work, and that happens so often. So there are going to be some people who are going to find it difficult and not want to know, and that's because that's their point of view, and that's fine, because we've all got different but you'll find that it could be the opposite.
More people are interested now than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. A butterfly landed on my shoulder this morning. Could that be a sign from beyond the veil? Well, butterflies, robins, feathers can all be signs that your loved ones are with you, if that is what you feel.
But I also feel that you need authenticity when you say that, because of course butterflies, anybody who's sceptic will tell you the butterflies are flying around all the while, in the summer especially, of course, and they are likely to land on you or land by you, and that's just a common occurrence. Same as robins can very often visit your gardens, common occurrence. Feathers can fall from the sky because birds lose feathers. So all these signs can be talked about in a normal general way. The only time that you could actually say it was spiritual is if it's got a connection and you've been asking to talk to somebody from spirit, and you know that is a sign from them. Sometimes you know that your mum was a great lover of robins or butterflies, because it also means change. Butterflies mean change, life change very often. And so you can see the signs. It just depends what feels right. You often get something that goes with it, like a shudder, a feeling, your hair standing up on end, something else that lets you know that it's actually not just a normal occurrence.
Not a coincidence.
And when feathers appear in your house, yes, they could come in from your shoes, but when you actually see them float down in your house, which has happened, then it's a bit more difficult to come out with a rational explanation. But I always think people should look for a rational explanation first, because not everything is a spiritual sign. Sometimes it's just the feathers falling from the sky. So you've got to be aware that don't get too over the top with everything. Realise that life does go on. But let's be honest, butterflies, robins, feathers falling from the sky, they're all magical occurrences anyway, and they're all wonderful things to experience and be around, and that in itself is a gift. Absolutely. From nature, from spirit, and we should realise that nature's a gift.
Yes, couldn't agree more. How do I see auras, and how do I interpret what I see? Oh, that goes on a little bit from what we've been talking about with colour.
Yeah, it does.
On a different podcast.
Yeah, there's several ways of seeing auras. One is in your mind's eye, which is like clairvoyance. You look at somebody and sometimes you'll see a colour with them out of no particular reason, or you could see colours in your mind's eye. Another way of doing it was two, actually. One is if somebody's standing in front of a background that maybe is like a white background or something without very much colour, you can look at just a little bit around the head or the body, and after a while you'll see a band, and it can often be colour, and so you'll see it. Another way is to get your index fingers, touch them to begin with, slowly pull them apart and concentrate, don't pull them apart too much, concentrate on the gap in between, and if you concentrate long enough you will definitely see colour. The only thing is it'll hurt your eyes, and they'll probably water your eyes, but you will see a colour. We've done that in circle as well, and people have seen all colours.
And then it says, how do I interpret what I see? And then that goes back again to colour. Yeah, and what colour means to you.
Exactly. And the other thing is, if you do this too long, some people naturally see auras anyway, but if you do it too long, you probably need the optician. But that's another thing.
Okay. I was thinking of attending a retreat, but I'm concerned that I won't know anyone there.
Well, you can answer that, sir, because
a lot of people that come to our retreats for the first time come alone, and as soon as you come, you're made very welcome, and we do include everyone, and friendships are made. You won't go home feeling that you don't know anyone. So a spiritual retreat is literally that. It's a retreat away from your everyday life, where you can be with people, working with spirit, talking about spirit, just exploring your own spirituality. But I can promise you, you won't feel alone for long.
And if you can imagine the lovely voice of Sue, you'd know if Sue was there, you'd be more than welcomed. That's why I asked Sue to do that one.
Oh, thank you. Okay, this is an interesting one. How long do souls stay in spirit between earthly lives, and do they always return with the same soul each time?
Actually, this is another question for you, Sam, because you had a past life.
Yeah, well, the thing is, in spirit, there is no time. That is the main thing. There is no time. Time is a man-made concept. And whenever I've done a past life regression, the person that I've regressed knows deep within that that is their soul. On a past life regression, you may go somewhere you've never been, you may change sex, but you know that that is you. So I don't think our soul changes. I think there's a gossamer thread that goes through our lives that things stick to, but who we are is who we are.
Yeah, and how long do you think we stay in this before in between lives?
I think that's up to ourselves, because I personally believe that we go back to source, we heal, and then we agree to come back when we're ready. As I say, there is no time in spirit. Some people might want to stay in spirit longer, some might want to come back straight away.
Yeah, so this is one that I struggled with for some time, because being a medium, how can you be reincarnated and also give communication to somebody on the earth? The answer I got was what you were saying, but the fact that if somebody needs them, if there's somebody on the earth that still needs their guidance, part of them stays there in order to communicate. And when I say part of them, there is a train of thought that says that it's almost like we can be more than one person in a sense. In other words, there can be parts of us here, parts of us there, because of time.
Because time doesn't exist. But what about us travelling as a soul family?
I fully agree with that. I fully believe that.
That we wait until all of our family is gathered together and we travel on to another life together. We might not have the same relationship. Your father might be your sister. As humans, this is the earthly body that we're in now, but that's disposable then. So our soul, I firmly believe, stays the same with us wherever we go, whatever life we go into, moving forward.
Well, I love that idea, and I think that's a beautiful idea, and I do believe it, and I really hope that is true.
Well, I think so, because it's like in this life we know people.
That's
don't
true,
we?
Yeah.
We meet people and we know. So having that soul family connection, it's nothing to do with blood, because this is just...
Yeah, you can have blood relatives that you're not that keen on.
Well, that's true as well. But this body is just a vessel for this life.
Yeah.
Those connections, I feel, go much deeper. How do I find my spirit guide, and how does it work?
That's an interesting question, because some people, and we're all different, some people, because you've done meditations where we've met our spirit guides, and very often they've been animals, they've not always been humanoids. So, and a lot of people like the idea of having an animal guide, because a lot of people like animals as much, if not more, than people. And then you've got your guides. I believe that a guide is somebody that needs to understand you. A guide is somebody that must know all about you in order to guide you. So I personally believe that we've all got a guide that's a family member that would have been passed over before we were born, so that they're in a position to guide us from day one to the day that we come back to spirit, because they're already in spirit. And that comes back to how long do we stay before we reincarnate. So that particular guide for every person, it could be your great-grandfather or grandmother or whoever, who actually was in spirit when you were born.
So a gatekeeper.
A gatekeeper. Other people will talk about different guides, and yes, I can understand that as well, because you could have guides that are there to help you in a particular situation.
I think we do have different guides at different times. I don't think we have just one guide.
No.
And as John said, if you want a guide, don't you want somebody that loved you and cared for you on the earth, that is still loving and caring for you?
Yeah. One of my teachers many years ago, she said that when she asked about that, because she was confused by that, she wanted to know her guide. A guide actually says, do I tell you the truth when I give you a message, when I tell you what to tell people? She says, yes. Have I always been there helping you whenever you've needed me to? Yes. Why do you need to know me? I'm here. You have to trust me. And how about if I'm somebody who you can't actually, if I show you who I am, maybe you wouldn't be able to understand, because what makes you think I'm human? And
perhaps that's such a an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Do we need to know, or do we just trust that the information they're giving us is what really matters?
Yeah. So would your prejudice stop me from being able to work with you? So there's several answers, but there's a few. And then the thing is, so long as it gets you thinking, that's the most important part of this.
Yeah, but spirit guides, meditation is a very good way to find them, but you won't always see them.
No,
and so it's very often about feeling and knowing that they're there,
and these questions
it comes down to trust.
These questions are definitely making us think.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is one for you, definitely. If I have a reading, will I get specific information from my loved ones, and how do I know it's genuine?
Well, the genuine bit is quite easy, really, because you know the answers, you know the characteristics of your loved one, you know how they would talk to you, and that's a big part of it. Is their personality coming through? Specifics, yes, specifics often and would have to come through. You would need something in order to believe in the reading, believe in the reader, because we all have to start this process. If it's a person you've never had read for you before, there has to be a slight skepticism.
Yeah,
yes.
That's healthy.
Even if you're not skeptic normally, you would have to, that person has got to prove something to you. So yes, you can expect to get some specifics. Not always the ones you want, but enough to convince you that the person's talking to your loved one, because they know things that person would know, that nobody else would know. And unless you get that, you're not really going to be convinced by the reading.
And this just leads nicely on. Does Spirit know what's going to happen in my future? Does this mean I don't have free will?
No. Free will is definitely yours. The spirit world aren't there to dictate your life, because that would be pointless. They're there to guide. They're there to give you their opinions, like they would on Earth. If you're talking to your mom and you've got a problem, she would definitely tell you her opinion, whether you liked it or not. She would tell you what she thought. And very often, as we know, with our parents, with people who we love, we will sit there politely listening and do exactly the opposite. You are allowed to do that with spirits as well, because they don't mind. They know who you are. They already know you're going to do that. They do often know what's best for us, but at the same time, it's what we think's best for us, because you're not going to learn, grow and develop unless you make your own choices, unless you follow your own pathway.
So they're there for guidance rather than fortune telling.
Yeah, I don't believe in fortune telling in that way. We have, through spirit, through readings, things have come through that the person didn't know that was about the future that's actually come to pass. But I don't see it as fortune telling. I see it as something... Guidance, yeah.
Okay. Can you recommend a good book for spiritual development?
There's plenty of good books out there, and they're a good starting point, but spiritual development has to be done in a group. It has to be done with other people, because you need feedback. You get to a point of reading the books, well, unless you start doing it yourself, you're not going to get anywhere. The books are definitely a good starting point, and there's some wonderful books written by some wonderful people, and they are good to read, and they are good to get you going, but you can't develop just through books. You need to be in a group with other people that you can ask questions, that they can help, and in order to know that what you're getting is right, because people will give you feedback.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of starting some spiritual work. What do I need to buy to create a spiritual room for me to practice in?
Nothing really, whatever you're drawn to, because you don't need anything. It's nice to have tools, and you'll find out after a bit of practice which tools work best for you.
Like crystals?
Like crystals and cards, different cards, pendulums, loads of different things out there. But
you don't need them to start with.
You don't need them now, but you may want them, which is a different thing.
Absolutely.
And they're beautiful, and they're lovely to have, so why not? But
so they do make a space look nice.
Yeah.
But all you need is peace and quiet to be able to meditate and go within to start with.
Yeah.
Everything else, that whichever way you decide to work, if you want to heal with crystals, that all comes later.
Yeah.
When you have found your own way and who you are and how you want to work. But to start with, you don't have to go out and buy anything at all.
No, I wouldn't spend a lot of money till you know what you're actually doing and what you want. Unless it's something you really like and you really want it, then that's fine. I mean, we're not to tell you not to spend your money, but there's no need if you just want to develop.
To start with.
No.
It's just simple about going within to begin with.
And spirituality is common sense at the end of the day. It's just using common sense, thinking what you would like to have and feel and everything. Every aspect of it's common sense. Yeah, okay.
Right, end of questions.
Is
that
all the questions? So if anybody's got any more questions I'd like us to attempt to answer in our own way.
And then, this, again, is only our belief system, isn't
exactly.
it?
Just send them into the website or Facebook or any other way, and we will endeavour to answer those on another podcast.
Yeah. So thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to Exploring Spirit with John and Sue Cook. John and Sue are always happy to hear from old friends and new listeners alike. You can reach them via their website at johncookmedium.co.uk or on their Facebook page, John Cook Medium. We thank Vitaly Vakulenko for the rights to use his music via Pixabay.